Hi, I'm Rachel Romeliotis, a senior editor at O'Reilly Media, and I am here with Raymond Camden, a developer at Adobe. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So now tell me your story. It's been a journey from server side to client side.
Yeah, so I began doing web work a long time ago, and I quickly found out that I was very bad at the front end, and the front end really wasn't fun to work with back in those days. So I started working on back-end stuff, Perl CGI scripts, and then Cold Fusion for a very long time. And I was very happy back there, and with the front end being kind of rough, the back end was where most of the cool stuff happened.
Sure.
A couple of years ago, I had some free time, and I thought, this front end stuff may be kind of important. I hear people talking about Ajax and jQuery and all that, and I began to look into it and start playing with it, and I just kind of fell in love. I had assumed that the front end had kind of stagnated, and it did for a while, but it has come light years ahead of what it used to be. So I have spent a lot of time kind of digging into all the nooks and crannies of HTML. There's tags I forgot about, like things like block quote having a site attribute. And I got really excited about all these kind of small little things that I could do to make, make the front end be just as good as the back end has been for a long time.
So you're definitely a full stack developer.
Yes.
What are the best pieces out right now? Like, what are the best frameworks for the front side, and what are you using on the back side right now?
Oh, that's not a hard question. Well, the one right answer is, so I've kind of hopped back and forth. I was kind of into Backbone for a while, but I've recently taken a look at Angular. I've heard Angular is a bit popular.
I've heard that myself.
Yeah, and I was really impressed with what I saw. So I haven't done a lot with it yet.
Okay.
I've just kind of gone through the basic demos, and I built my own little small things with it, but I really plan on spending more time with it.
So with Angular, is there, if you're a developer, is there a reason you would go with that over something else?
Oh, it's really a personal feeling, I think, in terms of like, when I worked with Backbone and Angular, and I've looked at other ones like Ember as well, there's always a feeling of like, I can do cool stuff with it, and I think that's very personal. So, for me, when I worked with Angular, I felt like I could do cool stuff with it.
Okay, cool. So have you heard about the mean stack, that new stack that's out there, the Mongo and I forget what the next one is, and Angular. So what do you think of that? Do you think that's a good mix?
I think it's pretty good. Certainly, I have spent a lot of time using Cold Fusion on the back end, but last year I began playing with Node.js, and I really like the fact that, the JavaScript stuff that I've been doing more and more of the last couple of years, being able to use it on the server side as well. At first, I wasn't into Node, mainly because every presentation I saw, they were building a web server. And I don't need a web server. I have Apache, I have IIS.
Sure.
But someone showed me Express, which kind of a framework built on top of Node, and it just really clicked for me. And once I started using Express, I did a lot more with Node.
Interesting. So you do a lot of talking and have fun with debugging, I know.
Yeah.
Looking on your website, I think you had 500. You had announced 500 bugs for Cold Fusion, was that right?
Yeah.
I laughed at that. So tell me a little bit about why you're into that and how important that is.
So, number one, I make a lot of bugs. I'm very good at making bugs. I find that being able to find out what a bug is and work out how it happened and how to fix it is extremely important. So I have a bad memory. I couldn't tell you all the functions in Cold Fusion, even though I've been doing it for 10 years. So I rely on my reference manual, and I rely on, if something goes wrong, I know how to attack it. And to me, that's been very successful for me. So debugging and knowing how to look at an error and kind of work with it, I think is probably the most important thing a developer can learn.
So being a full stack developer, I know some people focus more on the front end, some on the back end. Do you think it's important to have at least a general knowledge of the whole spectrum of what you're working with?
100%, yeah, definitely. So I'm not good at the pretty, I call it, but I think it's my responsibility to at least know that CSS exists. So I can't pick a good color scheme, but I know where that comes from.
And how it fits into the project. So if you are focusing on the back end, what would you say would be the first steps towards getting to know front end better?
That is a good question. So The Moz Dev Network, I think, is awesome.
Okay.
It's been around for a long time. I had always assumed that it was a Firefox-only resource, which would have been fair. That's their browser. I didn't realize that it was generic web, so they talk about everything. And to me, that has been the most friendly, the most highest quality dev resource out there.
Okay.
Certainly, O'Reilly has a few books out there.
We have a couple.
Couple.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, I've learned best by just playing.
Sure.
So I will make like 1,000 web pages to test something new. So like learning Angular recently, I built a lot of small demos, and then I built like my first real demo. But I learned by playing, essentially.
Interesting. So, final question: where would you like to see the web go, both front and back end, in the next 2-5 years?
Well, again, for a while I felt like the front end just kind of stagnated for
Sure.
a long time, and the last 5 years it's been light speed. So I want to see that continue.
Sure.
I definitely don't want to see things slow down again. I really hope that we can see more interaction between Apple and Google and Microsoft in terms of, they all have their own things they want to do, and that's
Sure.
fair. But we can see, all three of the big companies, Opera as well, continue to try in general to work together. I think we all benefit from it.
I would totally agree. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks
Thank
for joining me.
Thank you.